Hello there. I'd like to talk about how there is a certain repulsion from the Democratic Party now that it's going to lose power. And you will be able to see the true opinions of people who used to be left wing, especially as they clash with the ever increasingly left Democratic Party. This is a Kamala campaign financial advisor called Lindi Li. And well, let's see what she has to say.
He sort of personifies now the ghost of Christmas past, as does Biden. The Democrats have got to move on quickly, haven't they?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. She's indulging delusions of running for governor in California in 2026 and perhaps even running for president in 2028. And I just want to echo what a lot of you guys already said. This past week has been harrowing for me. This Saturday, I went on Fox and Friends and I said that Democrats have a stench of loser hanging over them.
Yeah.
As soon as I said that, there were boycott campaigns against me, unblock, unfollow campaigns. I lost 40,000 followers
Really?
in 4 days. People have called me the W word. I don't know what we're allowed to say, but you can fill in the blank.
We're
They've called me the
uncensored. Let's
W
say it.
word.
Say it. Say what the word was.
Am I allowed to?
Yeah.
Well, they called me a whore. They called me the C word. They asked for me to
Disgusting.
be deported. And you can just search for my name in those terms on X and you'll see a bunch of them.
So, once a minority is no longer left wing, they are no longer useful. Deport them. Is that what we're playing now? Interesting.
So, all these so-called Democrats, the party of inclusion, the party of diversity, masks off. And it's even worse because they pretend to occupy the moral high ground. At least with Republicans, they are who they are. But with Democrats, they pretend to be, so loving and caring and embracing of diversity. But all of a sudden, when I dare to utter any criticisms of the goddess Kamala Harris, I get ostracized. Me, after having raised tens of millions of dollars for the party. And I'm being called a grifter when all along, all these years, I've said on TV, I've said to the press, I'm a conservative Democrat. This is not a switch for me. This is just me. This is who
Yeah.
I've always been.
Yeah.
And also, my donors are pissed. They raised $2.5 billion across Super PAC in the campaign. It's my responsibility. It's my duty of care to ask what the hell happened with that money? Why did we spend it? Why did we spend millions of dollars on five-star hotels for campaign staffers? Why did we spend $500,000 essentially bribing Al Sharpton moments before he interviewed Kamala? These are legitimate questions, but no, in the cult, you can't ask questions.
Yeah.
And leaving the Democratic Party or even questioning the Democratic Party is like leaving a cult. It's terrifying.
Yeah. Dave Rubin. I mean, that's actually.
So, you might notice that in here with Piers Morgan and this Lindi Li lady, there's also Dave Rubin and even Chen Kuger. Now, I don't know the other two, but Dave Rubin used to be left wing. He's gay, married to a man, I believe. And he used to be left wing, switched to right because the left went too far for him. Chen Uyghur decided to start questioning the Democratic Party relatively recently in the wake of the last election. Not switching to the right, but definitely started allowing himself to criticize the things he finds wrong. And this is something that left-wing people could not do, and I believe they still can't if you see what happened to this lady. The charges against her were essentially she's a center-left Democrat. She calls it a conservative Democrat. Essentially, she's center-left. She's a moderate Democrat. She wanted to know what happened to the money she helped raise for the party. Why are we giving staffers five-star hotels and bribing Al Sharpton to give Kamala a softball interview? And she criticized the loss, saying that they have this stench of loser on them after they lost completely and utterly, losing pretty much everything, like all the states in play during the election for electoral college. They lost, of course, the presidency, the House, the Senate, pretty much everything. So you can't criticize the Democrats. You can't ask questions about what happened to the money, where did it go, and of course, if you are a minority, you had better align yourself with the Democratic Party, otherwise you ought to be deported. Obviously, they are not going to do that because they are afraid of the backlash if they do, but you can see this is not the first time I've heard of this reaction from Democrats. I believe after they saw that many Latinos decided to back Trump, they also wrote a lot of Democrats in social media. It was pretty much phenomenal. Wrote that it's good to deport them then if they are voting for the right. So obviously they don't have a principle in terms of protecting these people because of, I don't know, some immoral reasons. Rather, they are simply using moral excuses for a grasp at power. So these people essentially bringing in new voters that would be loyal to them for allowing them to enter the country. Now, and this is the second clip, much shorter, but it will allow me to, how to put it, elucidate a point about why are these people leaving the Democrat Party.
Pierce, I don't want that. I don't want to be a part of this tent. I don't want to be a part of this craziness anymore. They're accelerating my rightward shift. I don't want this nonsense. It's just crazy. And honestly, they're shrinking their tent. They're basically telling me to they're pushing me to bring my tens of millions of dollars that I raise and can continue to raise to a different team that treats me better, that treats me with just common decency, that doesn't call me a communist spy. By the way, the communist regime in China killed my great grandfather. They don't know my family's history. This is the first time I'm really saying it on air. They are calling me a spy for the regime that killed my great grandfather. Let that soak in just for a second. That's how disgraceful they are. Yeah. And these are the people who call themselves the social justice warriors. They are dabbling, they are going headfirst into racism anytime someone dares to disagree with them. I don't want to be a part of this nonsense anymore. I want to be a part of the team that says men are men and women are women, and then men shouldn't play in women's sports. And I'm an athlete myself. I'm a marathon runner. I don't want to run against a man. I know I'm going to get trounced. That's just biology. It's science.
Of course.
It's not politics.
So, what exactly does she disagree with on the Democratic Party? The things that affect her. Essentially, as a female athlete, well, racing against men, that's not going to go well now, is it? So, obviously, she disagrees, and disagreeing with the cult gets you ousted. And the same thing with the men and men and women are women thing, the same thing when questioning the financial decisions. You can see that anyone who actually has to contend with the results of the Democrats also loving social justice policies ends up simply leaving them. And that's what happened to, I believe, Anna Kasparian. She hasn't left the left, but she is teetering on the edge, I believe. Anna Kasparian is a major personality on Cenk Uyghur's podcast, and she's very left-wing. She used to be a very rude, let's say, and self-assured leftist, very condescending, famous for her "you are garbage, I'm better than you" speech. Anyway, so she has recently come under fire by the left for not wanting to be called the birthing person, the menstruating person, something like that, and saying she's a woman, and for criticizing the city allowing homeless people to, let's say, to put it, flaunt the law. She was, I believe, attacked by such a person near her house. Essentially, she's saying, why are things getting worse instead of better if we are trying to implement our policies? Shouldn't there be good results? And if not, we should reassess. And for saying something like that, of course, you're ousted from the cult. So, like this lady, they both don't sound as though they've become right-wing. They're still talking about the same values. It's just that they've noticed that there is a disconnect between the values being espoused and the actions being taken, and that the actions actually promote the opposite of the advancement of people, including the minorities and women, etc., that the left claims to support and defend. And this is an example of such a policy. I'm not going to show you the clip because the audio doesn't quite work as well in the recording, but this is from Libs of TikTok, a very famous X/Twitter channel, and you can easily find it yourself if you want to. So, This is a Georgia homeowner who was thrown in jail for criminal trespass after she called the police on a squatter in her home. Police officer told her to look at things from the squatter's point of view because not everyone is as fortunate as her to have a bed. I actually watched it all and it's not quite correct. So the way the police actually views it is she didn't have the legal permit to evict the squatter. There was a court battle which the homeowner won, but she is still waiting on some piece of paper that she needs in order to be legally allowed to evict her. And she essentially jumped the gun and did it anyway, and so they took her in as a trespasser in her own house. Now, what makes this egregious, rather than just, stupidity of bureaucracy, and unfair, what makes this egregious is why the squatter was allowed for so long to stay there. Essentially, the squatter is not a former renter. There was no deal between them whatsoever. There's no legal connection. But the judge allowed to call her a squatter and gave her the protections from the Democrats' squatter laws because she's a relative of a partner of a previous renter of this house. So someone rented the house, presumably lived there with their partner, then they finished the contract and left, and then this lady, who's a family member of the partner of the person who rented the house, goes in and squats there. Now that's the way it works. And she has protections because of Democrats. This is insane, and if you, a family member or a friend, are affected by it, you're going to turn on the Democrats. Not completely, but you're going to say, hey, wait a minute, what are you doing? This particular policy is crazy. We need to take a look at it. And for raising the alarm at one crazy thing that they're doing, you will be attacked and you will be called far-right, you will be called derogatory terms depending on your race and gender. They can be very racist and sexist when they turn on you, like that lady we saw previously said. And this will cause you to feel as though you are not welcome there. You may well never have been welcome there. You might have been simply there on the condition that you are a good little boy or girl and adhere to every crazy thing coming out of their mouth. And at that point, you will be, how to put it? You're very likely to air your other grievances with them. Like, for example, that lady aired her grievances about gender, allowing men into women's sports and locker rooms. And the more you criticize them, the more they will go out against you, pushing you essentially to the other team. So I believe that this is both a good and a bad thing. It is good because we need as wide a tent and as much money and power on our side as possible to fight against the influence of the BlackRocks and the Vanguard, the George Soroses and the Bill Gateses. On the other hand, it will dilute the sort of right-wing nature of the Republican Party. Now, I will say there are absolutely some bad influences from the right. I have seen some, there could be, but currently, I would say that the largest danger comes from left-wing perspectives because they can very easily slide into totalitarianism at the moment. Essentially, the left-wing morals are used as the cover for this totalitarian takeover by the corporations and the states, like the digital IDs, CBDCs, etc. All the censorship we're seeing, everything else, it's all covered up by left-wing morality, sort of empty talk. And so having a larger left-wing influence in your party makes you more susceptible to their, how to put it, sort of snake in the grass tactics. So we will need to be more on guard. If this lady brings in her donors, tens of millions of dollars, etc., they're going to have some influence in our party, and we are going to have to, how to put it, be on guard from erosion of our convictions. On the other hand, of course, it's good to have more people and more money. I believe that the Democratic Party lost partially because more and more people who might have been centrist, center-left, etc., are leaving them, and that's why there was such an overwhelming advantage for Trump last election. So, good and bad. But what is definitely happening here is that the Democrats are simply on a sort of straight line trajectory ever to the left. And what happened was that people, like 10 years ago, 15 years ago on the left used to be for borders. Suddenly now it's absolutely forbidden to be for borders. Although Kamala Harris did promise to build a wall, which is very strange. She just decided to flip close to the election because it was popular or something. I guess her being completely inconsistent and not having a real platform is part of why she lost. But that's beside the point. I'm trying to say that people who are moderate left today are always in danger of the party simply leaving them behind. And the moment you are no longer within the sort of overtone window of the left, you will be demonized, harassed with all sorts of epithets, and kicked out of the party, of the cult, essentially. Unless, of course, you bend your own values in order to stay at the edge of that party. And this lady, I guess, has a backbone. She has some values that she truly believes in, and she stands for. And the moment that she was no longer left-wing enough to the ever-shifting Democrat Party, she was kicked out. And I guess that's what happens to a lot of people. I remember, I forgot the name of that lady. She made a YouTube channel and essentially started talking about how she used to be left until she started questioning them when they got into a hobby knitting. And then she started asking more questions and trying to figure things out for herself. Went to a Trump rally to talk with the people there, and they weren't at all as hateful and violent and bigoted as she expected. And the more she asked questions, the more she realized she was being lied to, and the Democrats are utterly crazy. And this was basically her transformation that made her a successful YouTuber, at the time at least. So there is a hunger, in my opinion, amongst the centrist and center-left for a change in the Democratic Party, and when they finally express it, for example, at a time where there is a loss of the most left-wing candidate ever in the history of the United States, Kamala Harris was incidentally checked to be the most progressive member. I believe she was in the Senate in the entire country. Like they checked how much support you give to bipartisan legislation versus left-wing legislation, and specifically the more left-wing causes. And she was essentially ranked the most progressive member of the Senate. I forgot. So what we have here is the most progressive candidate in the history of the country. And once she lost, less progressive people, less far-left people in the party felt that they might have an opening to criticize some things on the left, not from a point of attacking the left, but rather from wanting some reform, wanting to go a bit close to the center. And this is, of course, answered with a huge backlash, ousting you from the party immediately. So, are they going to shrink the party ever more? Are they doomed? I don't think so. They will keep getting new voters across the border, and they will also try to keep educating, indoctrinating people in universities, where you have in some universities, I believe, 100-to-1 in terms of leftist to right-wing professors. The same for teachers, I believe, something not quite as bad maybe, but the figures are still pretty bad. I think I saw something like 20-to-1. So they will try to import and manufacture new voters instead of trying to fight for the minds and hearts of the people who are no longer positively predisposed to them. Replacing the electorate allows them to simply not change their trajectory, because they're not there to represent anyone, they're there to push an agenda. And if you want to ask whose agenda, ask where the money comes from. When you have as much money, I believe Kamala Harris had billions as her budget for this time. When you have that much money, even this lady who can round up donors to, let's say, give tens of millions, she's still a small fish. She and her donors can go away and everything will still be fine. Most of the money comes from much larger donors. They are the ones that have the power. I believe Don Lemon actually pointed that out in one of their rallies, and everybody was quite shocked. I don't know why. Seemed like an open secret at that point. So let's find out how well this works for the Democrats. I think in the end it's going to be a positive development for the right to, at the very least, have less adversaries, more people who might be on the fence but leaning more towards us, not so much because they agree with everything we say, but because they agree that at least we are grounded in reality and have good manners, unlike the left, which is a cult. Thanks for watching, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.